This video is picking up with part 2, looking at step 14 in the utility shed design part 2 for CEA core training. So as we take a look, we have done a lot with our shed design, added roof, windows, changed wall types, added in door and everything into this. So what we're going to end up doing now is we're going to look at creating a drawing. So as I follow down through the document on page 9, step 14. As I take a look, what they want us to do is in the project browser, we're going to look at creating a drawing. So I'm going to find the option for sheets. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to select new sheet. So from here, I'm going to add an 11 by 17 sheet. So it's not loaded in the project. So I'm going to choose the load button. It takes me to the Imperial Library. I'm going to go up a couple levels because I was working with Windows earlier. To come back to the main menu level, I'm going to scroll down to find title blocks. From here, I'm going to choose the B 11 by 17 horizontal and say open. It will go through and put in the loaded into the project, but you have to actually make sure that it is selected and then say OK. All right, so here's our title block. We are able to go through and start to look at customizing the title block. One thing you'll notice in your project browser now, the Sheets has a little plus sign next to it. So now we have A101 unnamed, and what we can end up doing is we can rename it here. I'm going to right click, say rename. I'm going to leave the number alone. It is A101, but I'm going to go ahead and name this Green Utility Shed and say OK. And actually you will see down here the name of the drawing will update with that rename that you had here. And one thing that we will end up doing is we can add, so looking at the title block, you do want to be careful if you double click on any of the other components, it will take you into editing the title block. So this is what this will look like. So this allows you to edit like the image and everything that's there. What I would end up doing is you want to go ahead and say, when you get finished, load into project and close. Do you want to save changes? No. And then you come back to the title block that's available. So there are attributes on the title block. So if I double click on the word owner, I can go ahead and put in my name in there. The project name, we can end up saying, we could call this utility shed design, and this will end up being the green utility shed that we have. So it's a utility shed design, and specifically it's a green utility shed that we're looking at creating. All right, so as we take a look, we can add various views to the sheet by a simple clicking and dragging from our particular case. So one thing is here we have 3D views. If I click the little plus sign next to 3D view, here's our 3D view. You can double click on it. That's another way that you can get to that. Now the only thing is the 3D view, when you go to look at this, if I double click on the sheet, I can hold down and drag the 3D view onto the sheet. Here's what will happen though, is you'll see the view is very large, and it's because of some of those various items that we have in the view. So one is going to be these elevation markers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to say to activate the view. So this is like going in, and now it's just like activating the view as I go into the 3D view. I'm going to go to visibility graphics, so which is over here in the properties palette, and say the edit. And from here, for this particular one, this is known as there's two tabs you will work in primarily. Model categories, which are things you see, and then there's going to be annotation categories. So if I select annotation categories, I want to find, for example, scroll down until I find levels. So if I uncheck that, and then if I say apply, you're going to actually see those levels will disappear. And I'm going to say OK. I'm going to right click and say deactivate view, so then that way now all I've got is just this little box for the 3D view. You will have a view indicator down here at the bottom. You will need to deselect by left clicking somewhere in the white space, and then I'm going to select the view indicator and bring it up here so that way it's close underneath our view. Now the line's going to be extended out really long, and in order to get, you should have a little blue dot to where you can drag this a little closer. So what I'm going to do is I got to select the view. There our dot shows up, and I'm going to drag it closer to the end of our view. So there's a 3D view to add to our drawing, and that's exactly what they have us do there. The next one they want us to add in our floor plan. So one thing that we will end up doing is I'm going to drag the floor plan over, and the same kind of thing will happen is like it's this large box. So if I click to place it, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at, it's got all the elevation markers. What I can also do is if I double click I can double click to activate the view as well. So it's the same thing as right clicking and choosing activate view. One thing they'll notice is that down here in the bottom you'll have something known as show crop region, and the crop region is how much of the view that you're showing, very much like a crop box that you would have. So if I click on the crop region and if I drag these arrows in, I'm actually going to hide a lot of what we don't need. So we're cropping this down, almost like cropping an image down in Microsoft PowerPoint or Microsoft Word. And I'm going to drag it so that way they're very close to each other, to this view. Okay, when I'm done, if I left click off of it, it will leave lines. So I do need to toggle off to say hide the crop region. So that way it's not there. The view label is down here at the bottom still. I'm going to right click and say deactivate the view. I can drag my floor plan up here into place, and I'm going to drag this view indicator. So I always want to make sure that the name of the view is kind of down here underneath the bottom left hand corner of the screen, or of the view that's being described. Alright, select the view, gives me the little dot, and I can drag that down to go through and make sure that happens. So if you need to, you can also double click to activate the view if you need to drag these dimensions a little closer or anything like that, maybe to make more room on your sheet. You can always do that, and again, right click and say deactivate view to bring everything back into place. So that will add those. The other thing that we'll take a look at is we're going to change the scale. This is set right now at 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. If I double click on it, activate the view, choose the view scale down here at the bottom, and I'm going to go to 1/4 inch equals a foot. It will up the size on that. The text will get a little bit smaller, but I'm going to right click and say deactivate view, and I'm going to drag that floor plan into place where it will be on the sheet and not inside of the borders. So again, view label, this is the scenario where I might need to extend the line a little bit more, and there we go. So there's our floor plan. If I double click on it, I may want to bring in these dimensions a little closer, and there we go. So we have our views on there right now. I'm going to deactivate the view in order to bring us back to the sheet. And that's going to be how we end up kind of looking at that. So very similar, we're going to add 2 elevation views into our drawing, and some of this may impact kind of the spacing and everything on our drawing, and that's going to be what we look at. So here, I think I'm going to add the south elevation. I hold down on my left mouse button, drag it onto the page, click to place. Very similar thing. If I double click to activate the view, I'm going to show the crop region. Select the outside boundaries, very similar to how I did on the floor plan. You're going to notice here that as I drag this one in closer, the view labels don't get hidden. They just get kind of drawn closer to it. So we want those elevation markers to be close, and we don't want to cut off any of our building elements. I'm going to deactivate the view. First I need to hide my crop region. Deactivate the view. I'm going to go ahead and place my south elevation and go ahead and move my view label. And the next one I'll probably add in is going to be either the east or the west elevation. I think I'm going to add the east elevation in. And I'm going to click to place it. Again, I can show the crop region. Adjust from here. Hide my crop region. Deactivate the view. The cool thing about this is that Revit will help you line up the views. So you'll see that blue dash line as you get close. So it'll actually line these up together. And then my view label will also helps me line up with the one that's on the south. And again, click on my view to get the little dot and shorten the line. So this will go through and help you with creating. I think I'm going to drag this one just a little bit closer. There we go. And this helps you with go ahead and setting up your elevation views on your drawing that you would document your design with. So this video concludes step 14 of creating a drawing. You can move on to other videos to see some other different components of the utility shed, the optional ones, adding interior walls and site plan components, and eventually look at part 3, which will be finishing out the utility shed design drawing.